Hey, hello everyone. Thanks for joining today, and thanks for your patience while we got settled in. Um, just want to welcome everyone to today's information session on Central City Code Amendments Project. I'm Wayne Grabowski. I support engagement at the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. The purpose of today's session is to share more detail about the project and to answer your questions to help you inform your feedback. I do want to note that the session is being recorded and it will be posted publicly. Staff will present an overview of the project and the alternative proposals. This is not a formal public comment session, and though we won't be collecting official comments here, we will make sure you have access to the formal comment process. We can take questions throughout the presentation, but we will have a formal Q&A at the end. So if you need clarification on any points, you can note those down, and we can also return to the slides and the topic during the Q&A. Chat is turned off, so if you raise your hands, we can have you unmute to ask your questions so that it is part of the recording and can help inform others as well. Today's session will go until 1:30. And with that, I'll hand it over to Troy. Take it away.
All right, thank you. I'm not going to be probably seeing hands or anything, so if anything pops up, or people just jump in. Not that many of us, I don't think so. It'll work fine. So, hi, I'm Troy Doss with the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. I'm the team lead for the Central City team, and I'm going to be walking you through the basics of our Central City Code Amendments project. Um, so let me jump in right now. Give me a second here. All right, so we'll walk you through the project purpose, the background on the project, some of the comprehensive plan and zoning map amendments, some of the amendments to the zoning code, and then there's a handful of little miscellaneous correction amendments as well. So the project purpose, this really builds off of a couple years of decline in the central city. Quite honestly, we've seen a significant downturn in residential construction. We've seen some, high office vacancies. There's just been a lot of different things that have happened since 2020 that have put us in a not particularly great position. So we're proposing a number of strategic amendments to try to help along with other things that have already been done, which I'll walk through in a second. But what we're really trying to do is kind of create more flexibility and support some of the more larger catalytic projects that are coming online. This is going to build off in part of the governor's recent Central City Task Force and the report All In on Portland Central City, a roadmap for recovery, reclaim, and rebuilding, reconnect. It's worth looking at if you haven't seen it. It's really good ideas that came out of that. It also builds off of the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability's recent housing needs assessment and housing production strategy. And it builds off of also analysis we've done recently about a study of the availability of vacant and buildable lands in the central city, of which there's quite a bit. This does not change the Central City 2035 framework. So again, these are small strategic amendments that are made here and there. They're not trying to redo the landscape of the urban form that we proposed in the 2035 plan, nor is it really change, but builds upon the policy framework that came out of that plan. So regarding some of the map amendments, and again, they're fairly minor. What we have is in the Lower Albina area, there's going to be some map changes that will occur on Russell Street, primarily to the east side of the street, outside of the Conservation District, and to a couple properties on the back ends of lots that face Russell Street. So some of those properties were already comp plan designated for central employment, EX. Some are currently light industrial IG1, and we're going to be rezoning those to EX to allow for additional housing capacity in that area and to build a more kind of continuous main street along Russell Street. Adjacent to that area in the Lloyd district, the old Dreyfus grain terminal site will be rezoned from IG1 to CX. That will allow for community serving uses. Could have housing as well, but recent proposals for that seem to look at it as probably more of a community serving use. But that's the direction we'll be going there. In the Central East Side, there's two streets, primarily Cooch Street and Belmont, where the zoning's been split on those main streets for years. So one side's EX, the other side is IG1. That's created somewhat of an inconsistent urban form along that street, and the majority of uses along both are no longer industrial. So we're proposing to go to EX on those two corridors, allow for more housing capacity. Um, we're doing a small piece of rezoning down on the southern end of MLK Grand in similar zoning pattern. And then we're rezoning the former Ross Island Sand and Gravel batch plant to EX. That was a site that had been proposed to be EX as part of the 2035 plan, but at the time, Ross Island Sand and Gravel was not interested in doing that because their operation was still ongoing. But that has since ceased, and so we're going to take an opportunity there to change that zoning and make it consistent with the rest of the zoning that's around the OMSI station area. So the whole southern area there has a lot of EX. And then the only change on the west side is going to be upzoning the multi-dwelling four piece of land that's just to the west of uh, Lincoln High School and bringing it to a more consistent pattern of CX because the majority of properties around it are also CX. The entitlements will all stay the same on that. It's just a upzoning just so there's more consistent zoning pattern there. When it comes to how we're going to be allocating FAR, we're not really increasing FAR except for the areas where we've changed the zoning from a industrial to a mixed use pattern. So I can get into the specifics if you want to get into that later, but I would note that generally what we've done is if the properties to the adjacent properties across the street or the next parcel over on the same Main Street corridor, if they have a height pattern, we typically just mirrored that pattern on these sites in terms of height and the FAR. But for FAR, that's generally always been the case. Heights may vary. We'll come to that in a little bit. We also, because of those areas, industrial zones do not have an FAR, maximum FAR allowance or height allowance. We're applying those. So as I mentioned before, we're also still doing the same thing. We're mirroring the adjacent height patterns on these sites that are being brought in. Um, so one of the things we've also tried to do is find areas where we could increase the building envelope by increasing the building height. So we did a lot of analysis during the 2035 plan to look at the scenic view corridors. It was a complete overhaul of that system, and we did far more accurate modeling to make sure that any buildings that could be constructed, the maximum height was not going to intrude into the view of the scenic resource that's being protected. But we left a lot on the table, as it turns out. There were areas where you could have gone even higher and still not impacted that visual resource. So we're taking opportunities now to increase heights in a couple key areas to do that. They're identified on this map, and we get into more specifics if you like. But if you look at our discussion draft, you can find all this information in far more detail. In terms of zoning code amendments, there's a couple use allowance changes we're making. So in the EX and IG1 zones, light industrial uses and warehouse and freight movement is allowed by right. It's been not allowed in the CX zone, which is the majority of the central city zoning pattern. But what we're proposing to do is allow for light manufacturing because we're finding there's a whole new series of industries that are coming on. Some are deal with supporting the food cart industry through commissary kitchens. Some of them are light industrial uses that do manufacturing processes with 3D computers and very small impact type uses. So we're allowing for those to be located in the CX zone because they're already allowed in the EX zone. And again, the EX zone has already been applied to the majority of the Pearl District as well as the Main Street corridors in the Central East Side. Additionally, we're going to allow for small scale warehouse and freight movement. So micro delivery, last mile kind of distribution allowance of no more than 5,000 square feet also throughout the CX zone. So that'll allow for the smaller scale delivery to occur that's already kind of happening, but centralize it a little better. With regard to retail sales and service, there was a request by the Central East Side Industrial Council to consider greater allowance of retail on the ground floors of buildings to activate the public realm. So there's been a lot of kind of negative activity that's occurred in there since the pandemic. So this hopefully will help to energize some of the public realm there by allowing going from a 5,000 square foot maximum on retail sales and services to a 20,000 per site. We're also going to be looking at increasing the amount of retail that can be in the open space zone, which in the central city is majority Portland Parks and Recreation property. So right now, you can do a minimum amount of retail, but what we'll allow is for sites that are smaller than 50,000 square feet, they can do 2,500 square feet of retail. On sites over 50,000 square feet, 5% of the total area can be in retail sales and service. One of the ideas there is to try to mix that type of use in a place like Tom McCall Park, where you could have a sprinkling of retail sales and service uses to better activate the parkscape there throughout the year. There'll also be some modifications to better allow for commercial outdoor recreation as well as major event entertainment like performing venue, that type of thing in the park. During the 2035 plan, we did increase the amount slightly of EX zoning in the Lower Albina and in the Central East Side. And those areas where we had comp plan designation of EX, we put at the time a prohibition on housing. The reason for that was there were very active industrial uses that were nearby. Like in the Central East Side, the one that I just mentioned is like the concrete batch plant. We figured that was a pretty poor place to site housing next to. Now that operation is closed and there's no other industrial use moving in, that's an area where we're going to go ahead and lift that prohibition. So all these areas on the map will be rezoned to allow for housing by right. We're also going to be making a couple changes to how we regulate the FAR. So one, we're going to put another bonus in play that above the 3-to-1 you can earn when you're doing residential development as part of the inclusionary housing package. There will be the ability to earn an additional 1-to-1 when 2 and 3 bedroom units are constructed as part of a project. This is an attempt to try to get it more increase the supply of family compatible housing in the central city because we have a deficit of that currently. Over 80% of the housing in the central city consists of studios and 1-bedroom apartments. And that's just not great for a long-term sustainable structure. We're seeing families start in the central city and then immediately move out because they just outgrow the spaces. So hopefully this will help with that. We're also going to make a change to the minimum density provision where we're going to exempt major event entertainment uses. And the basis for this is uses like the Moda Center or the Oregon Convention Center would not be allowed today based on those provisions. This is just an oversight of what we were doing. Because those, although they're bulky structures, they don't contain a whole lot of floor area. So this will hopefully get us around that obstacle when similar uses are proposed in the future. And we're also going to allow for some adjustments to the minimum FAR requirement because right now there's no way to adjust that. Going back to residential, as part of the 2035 plan, there was a call at the time to expand the prohibition of ground floor units throughout the central city on key streets. And we're going back on that. We found that it was probably more than was necessary. There are a couple key streets that definitely probably are not going to lend themselves well to ground floor units, like Burnside, for instance, maybe 4th Avenue. But some of the other streets that are down along the waterfront in the retail core, they definitely can. It's just a design solution that needs to be addressed for that. So we're going to lift that prohibition and allow that to continue on those sites. With regard to parking, there's going to be a couple new provisions regarding surface parking. So the first will be to allow surface parking on lots where some or part of the lot is covered by a freeway section. You find these are areas that are typically owned by ODOT or maybe the county. They're areas that will have usually a prohibition on doing development because they need to access those sites for emergencies or to do future construction. So they won't allow structural development on it, but they do allow for parking. So we're going to allow for parking on those with minimum improvements. And then we're going to also allow for a new provision that allows for temporary surface parking on sites that have been vacant for 5 years, and there's a 5-year period that would go in to how long you could park on those sites. Those ideas that it'd be for accessory parking and help with the businesses that are trying to recover around some of these sites before development occurs on them. We're also going to make one minor change to the monthly parking allowances and the smart park structures, all the city-owned structures that are under smart park. There's currently a, a ban on doing long-term month-to-month parking. So now we're going to allow for 400 spaces per facility or 50%, whichever is less. Getting towards the end here, we're also been working on provisions for food carts, and these ones are going to apply citywide. So this started with a look at the central city, but this is a provision that can apply elsewhere. So food carts have always been regulated as a vehicle, and as such, they were only allowed in parking lots and vehicles moving areas. But because they're non-motorized, generally, what we're looking at is allowing for them to be located in other locations, plazas, other situations on a more permanent level. We've also created a new section in the code that is explicitly provides the development standards for food carts. It's always been a kind of a challenge for new operations to come in, especially food cart pods, is trying to navigate the code because there really wasn't a one centralized place for that. So we've made it easier to locate them, and we've made it clear about what the provisions are. And then there's a couple smaller amendments. So currently there's a requirement to do 60% of new roofs in the central city as eco roofs. We're going to allow that now to all and or be solar panels. And we're going to make some changes to how Central City master plans are processed. So currently, if you haven't adopted Central City master plan, a number of the, if you need to make an amendment to them, a number of those have to be processed as a type 3 review in front of the design commission, which adds a time and expense to that process. So we're going to be modifying that as a type 2 review that will be handled at staff level. Still appealable to the design commission, but it hopefully will ease the process of amending those plans. And as mentioned, there's a couple handful of just smaller little technical things that are really probably getting into more of errors and other things that came out of the original 2035 plan that we'll be addressing. So the next steps in this process, we released the discussion draft a couple weeks ago. That review period for that will be open through February 13th. If you go to the project website, there's a map app you can open up and you can provide comments about the proposals there. We'll be taking those through the 13th, and then at that point, we'll turn around a recommended draft to the Planning Commission, which we expect them to start hearing sometime in late April, processing it hopefully by the end of May, and then it will be forwarded to City Council for their review. The timeline for that, unfortunately, we can't really give you too much specificity on that because the process is still kind of being worked out by the new City Council as well as how they're going to process these things. But we're anticipating that there will be a review process that would be over by late summer or early fall. So with that, I think we'll just open it up to any questions you may have.
Thanks, Troy. I posted the link to the project page, which, as Troy noted, includes the map app and where to comment. And yeah, we have chat turned off, like I said, but if folks want to raise their hands with questions, or Troy, it sounds like you're comfortable with folks just coming off mute and asking questions. Does that sound good to you?
Sounds good.
Cool.
We have other staff here who can answer those questions as well. So.
I've got a question about parking.
Sure.
And this is Kevin Volk with Holst Architecture. You had mentioned one of I believe there was a temporary 5-year period for surface parking on vacant lots. The graphic on the screen didn't say it had to be vacant for 5 years, but that's what I heard you say. Um, must Is there a period of time that site must be vacant before this code amendment goes into effect?
Well, yeah, 5 years. So once this code's been effective, the site would need to have been vacant for 5 years. So
Okay.
what we're trying to do is avoid hey, let's take down a structure and create a new area for parking because we know there's a lot of vacant and underutilized properties out there that already could lend themselves to that use if they're going to be built in the near future.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Hi, Troy, excuse me, Ezra Hammer here. I just was curious if you could share kind of what the tone and tenor of the feedback has been on the project, either from the public at large or internally with our new elected officials.
With regard to elected officials, we haven't heard anything, but I'm not sure how much they're tracking. I mean, we don't do a lot of outreach at this point to them yet. But so we haven't heard anything from them. We have done 25 different meetings with neighborhood associations, business associations, and generally the feedback has been positive. We haven't really had any pushback on any amendments. I think there may be more of a question about are we open to applying some of these changes to other sites? And right now we've really tried to be pretty strategic in how we've done it. But so far, it's been a fairly quiet review period for a project in the central city.
Thank you.
Diane, do you have a question? I saw you pop up there.
I actually did, and I pulled myself back because I thought you might have come to my neighborhood association and answered this because I had missed a couple of meetings. But especially with the amendments to master plans, is there any consideration of providing some notice to neighborhood associations? Many of those notice requirements were eliminated a couple of years ago. So with an appeal to the design commission, it still isn't very helpful if you don't know these changes are happening to master plans.
I'm gonna have to look into that. Hold on a quick second here. We might have, you want to take that one?
Diane, can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, Rachel Hoy with Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. I'm just, we have a code person here on Shannon that's with us. I just want to make sure we have your question correct. So if somebody was to come in for an amendment to their master plan, you're asking if neighbors would be notified of that amendment?
Correct.
Can you take that?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, my name is Shannon Buno. They would be, so the code on page 131 specifies that if it's a minor change, it's a type 2 review and there is neighborhood notice of a type 2 review.
Oh, there still is. Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe
And I see
Jerry.
Jerry's hand was up next, and then after Jerry, we have Sako. Jerry.
Hey, Jerry. Might be on mute.
There we go. Question about light industrial uses in the CX zone. I understand the intent, and you did a good job of explaining where you were coming from with that. I didn't see any concession to the possibilities that these low-level distribution sites would have provisions for off-street loading for the goods coming into them. And I could see that in a place that like Goose Hollow that is access challenged in many cases. That could be a real problem.
You're looking for something to deal with some of the impacts of off-site or on-street loading of those facilities. So if there's not a loading bay associated with them. Okay, that's a good catch.
Yeah, that's almost exactly what I'm concerned about. There's in many cases in Goose Hollow where there's on-street loading or or offloading, it blocks the street, and it may be the only access for residents.
Okay, thank you. We will look into that and talk to our PBOT
Okay,
about that one.
thanks, Troy.
You bet.
All right, Soko, I see your hand.
Hi, I'm Soko with Urko. I just had a couple questions about engagement plan and if there were re these resources, which have been really great. Thanks for the presentation, but to help get information out to the more underserved or underrepresented communities that um, could use it in different languages other than English.
I'm not the best person to answer how we typically have done that. How are we doing the outreach on that?
We, so we do have, I understand, I believe what you're asking for here. If, maybe even after this discussion, happy to have a conversation with you if, to talk more specifically about, if there is a community or that may need some translation, or a presentation. We do have opportunities like that. Happy to talk to you about specifics beyond the meeting if that's helpful.
Yeah, that would be great. I'll put my information in the chat.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Wing, is that possible for Soko to provide his contact information? I know the chat's turned off, or is it turned on now?
I'm gonna keep the chat off, but Soko, I'm gonna drop, pardon me, contact info for the project leads in the chat for you to message them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
And apologies, turning the chat on creates a public record management issue. So,
Totally understand.
okay.
Jerry Powell again, representing Goose Hollow. The Multnomah Athletic Club, who's the clear and maybe only real beneficiary of the upzoning in Goose Hollow, the site that's on the west side of Lincoln High School. The Multnomah Club has asked the neighborhood for its support. It may be a really beneficial thing if the Bureau could send a representative to the next Goose Hollow meeting, because we really haven't heard anything from Bureau of Planning with respect to that change, which is fairly significant in the neighborhood.
Yeah, when is that next one scheduled, Jerry?
It's the third Thursday of the month. I don't remember the exact date, but it's at 7 p.m. Oddly enough, at the Multnomah Club.
Okay. Well, we could probably be there next. I mean, it looks like we probably missed this month, but we could be there next month.
Yeah, happy to join that meeting to answer questions related to that.
Yeah, we'll reach out to the website or the contacts and let them know.
Yeah, that's Scott Schaefer is the new president.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jerry.
You bet.
Any other questions? Well, I guess what I would say is we will be, we're happy to, we have a couple more meetings set up with different people who've also reached out wanting to get more information about this. So we're happy to attend. We will be keeping the comment period open on this through the 13th of February. And then we will be turning around in about a month or so a draft that will go to the Planning Commission, in which there will also be notice of that. And then at that point, if people still have questions or seek other changes or want to support something specifically or speak against something, please come to the Planning Commission hearings on that and have your voice heard. We hope that process will conclude, as I say, in May. And then we will we will wait along with everyone else to figure out when we're going to be in front of city council and how that's going to come together.
I would just add to what Troy has said, as Wing has put our contact information in the chat, and we happy to respond to any questions beyond today's meeting. I know we're only 35 minutes into an hour and a half session, but we would probably, again, happy to respond to questions beyond this if you think of something related to any of the provisions that we're proposing in the draft plan. I appreciate you all being here with us today.
Thanks for inviting us.
Great. Okay, with that, thank you everyone for joining. Project team, if I can get a thumbs up that we're good to end the session. Okay, awesome. Thank you all.